Wentz steps up. Here comes the rush. He is going deep, and it is caught. And in for a touchdown, Deshaun Jackson.
Give the people what they want.
Well, that was a pretty fitting end to the Eagles' 2020 season, wouldn't you say, Rube?
Yeah, I really can't imagine a more fitting way to end one of the ugliest seasons in Eagles history, really. It was certainly deserving of the season they've had.
Yes, it was. Ultimately, the Eagles lose 20-14 to the Washington football team. They fall to 4-11-1 on the season. They clinch the number 6 pick in the NFL draft. And I guess we have to start with the game itself and the decision to pull Jalen Hurts in the second half and put in Nate Sudfeld. Doug Peterson says he wasn't tanking. I think we all kind of understand the situation in this game, and I think the Eagles kind of thought that it would be a little bit different, but they were tanking.
Yeah, and you know, I don't mind not playing older veterans or guys with injuries that normally wouldn't keep them out of the game, but that was embarrassing. That was over the line. And Doug's explanation, well, he's been here 4 years, so I wanted to get him some reps. He wanted to reward him. I mean, this is the NFL. That's not how it works. And you got to have some sort of integrity about you. And I mean, Jason Kelce, 2 weeks ago, spoke so passionately about, why you don't do this. And I'll just read a quick quote. He went on for like 6 minutes about it, but he said, at all times in the NFL, the focus should be on winning the football game. Nothing else takes precedence, no player evaluation, no amount of curiosity from anybody within the organization. Everything is focused, in my opinion, in this league on winning games. You see a lot of losing teams sustain losses for a number of years when they have bad cultures. And, he talked about no draft pick, and they moved up 3 spots from 9 to 6 by losing the game. No draft pick. In his mind, no draft pick is worth sacrificing your integrity as a franchise to move up to get that guy. And I thought he made some great points, and I thought Doug really violated that, by getting Hurts out of there. I know people had thought, well, you got Matt Pryor and Brett Toast protecting him at tackles and, maybe get him out healthy. But this is something that Doug said he is planning all week. He talked about it in the production meeting. So this was on his mind. This was his plan. He was going to get Sudfeld in there. That's why it's one of the reasons Carson was inactive. Nate Sudfeld's thrown 2 passes since 2017. He shouldn't have been out there. It was embarrassing. And I got to publicly admit I was wrong, Dave, because I have steadfastly said that Nate Sudfeld should have been 2 when his wrist healed last year and not Josh McCown. Josh McCown should have been number 2, and I was wrong. And if Nate Sudfeld had started that Seattle game instead of Josh McCown, maybe he wouldn't have played like this. But I think I saw enough to kind of understand that Josh McCown was the right guy to play.
I should mention this is Eagle Eye Podcast with Reuben.
You didn't mention that yet?
Zangaro. I did not. You kind of went off there for a little bit. I will say this is off on it, but I don't know if that's necessarily indicative of Nate Sudfeld with that line. They would have had a better line in that Seattle game. But that's neither here nor there. I'm not outraged about them tanking this game. I understand that maybe it sends the wrong message. I understand that the veterans, I understand Jason Kelce's probably pissed right now. I understand Jalen Hurts is probably pissed. And I get that. But what's the line? Where's the line? Because we all kind of understood going into this game that they were better off losing it. And right before this game, we knew that if they lost it, they'd had the number 6 pick. If they won it, they'd had the number 9 pick. That's significant.
To me, the line is in a 3-point game, and I think it was 17-14 when he pulled Hurts early fourth quarter. You just don't do it. And he's healthy. It's not like he was getting sacked every other pass play. That's the only thing I object to is the Hurts, is Sudfeld for Hurts. Everything else I'm okay with. You want to throw the ball to Jason Huntley. You want to, whatever you want to give Corey Clement a couple carries. I'm fine with all that stuff. I just didn't like getting Hurts out of there when the game was winnable. And I don't know if they would have won the game. He did not play well tonight. I did not throw the ball well. But I also think that it's really kind of important for this team to see Jalen Hurts and get as much of a book on him as possible, so you know what you have in him. And a guy who's struggling, a 22-year-old kid who's having, the worst game of his short career, but it's still a close game, and he's playing a team that has something to play for. I want to see how he responds. I want to see how he reacts. He's not getting hurt, and you can't think that way. I would have liked to see him finish the game.
I guess. I don't think they're worried about him getting hurt. They're worried about him winning the game.
Yeah, well, then, I agree. And that goes back to, I just don't think moving up 3 spots for I don't know. Everything else I'm good with. I just didn't like it. I
mean, really, it's Washington's fault for not being any better. I mean, if Washington just took care of business in this game, they would have pulled away easily. Doug could have put Nate Sudfeld in. We wouldn't have noticed. And that's what I think he wanted to happen in this game. And Washington kept screwing it up. They kept coughing the ball up. Eagles defense played well. They were playing hard for Jim Schwartz in his last game. So I don't think Doug counted on Washington being that bad and putting him in that position to where it was obvious. I mean, in this game, they wanted to tank and they wanted to make it not so obvious. And ultimately, in order to lose the game, they had to make it obvious.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I thought maybe he should have pivoted then. When Washington got up early, and you kind of thinking, they're going to run away with it, and it wouldn't have mattered if he did make that move. It was 30-10 starting out the fourth quarter, but it was 17-14. Yeah, I didn't like it. I wouldn't say I'm outraged. I'm disappointed. I didn't like it. Outraged is strong. If they, picking at number 6 is it's a good place to be. And, I think they've had 6. I was just looking it up, 6 picks in the top 6 since 1974. And they've gotten some really good players and a couple of not so great players. But, you have a better chance to land a franchise player at 6 than 9. I get that, but I just think it's a bad look. I think I blame the league for flexing this game. Nobody, it should, and I get why they did it, but that was tough to watch. And I want to see as much Hurts as possible. That's what I think this game was for, and I'm disappointed we didn't get to see it.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't bother me, honestly. It just didn't bother me because I know that they're better off with that pick than they would have been with the other pick. So that's kind of what it boils down to for me. Maybe there's
on April 29th, I'm sure I won't be thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that right now. It looked awful. It was embarrassing. They did what they had to do to lose. And I understand that you're worried about that kind of permeating through a locker room, but if you get an all-pro player at number 6, that'll make up for it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I certainly don't think it's anything I don't think there's going to be long-term ramifications or, I don't think it's going to hurt Doug standing in the locker room. I just didn't like it.
I get that. Let's move on, though, because really the biggest news of the day was an ESPN report that Carson Wentz is expected to ask for a trade, that the relationship between him and the Eagles, and specifically him and Doug Peterson, is fractured. And, that's pretty big news. And then he's inactive for this game. What do you make of it all?
Yeah, we still haven't heard anything from Carson. We haven't talked to him since after the Green Bay game. Doug was asked about it and said, didn't say our relationship is great. He said it was professional. But I don't know. I mean, it's a weird year. We're not in the locker room. We don't, we don't see a lot of the inner mechanisms that we usually see. We don't get to spend time with players that we usually talk to. The only time we talk to players is on Zoom calls with, 39 other writers. So I don't know what to think. I mean, this keeps coming out, and generally where there's smoke, there's fire. It's understandable if the relationship has gotten that bad. I'm not sure how it got to this point. I'd like to see, again, and I've said this for 5 years, I'd like to see a little more accountability from Carson. And all I know is, I mean, I grew up playing sports, and if I had a bad game, if I did, all I wanted to do is work harder, try to, and try to get better. It would never occur to me. I don't think it would occur to most competitors to, I want to leave. It's not going the way I wanted, so I just want to take my ball and go home. I hate that. And again, this isn't coming from Carson, so it's coming from it's always from unnamed sources, and we don't know who they are. I'd like to hear from Carson until I hear from him, until I hear him say, I don't want to be here. I'm going to kind of withhold judgment. But if it is true, it just bothers me that instead of just rolling up his sleeves and say, I believe in myself. I believe that I'm going to come into training camp, whether it's open competition or not, I'm going to win that job. I'm going to have the best training camp ever. I'm going to play lights out in the preseason games. I'm going to win that job. And not, I want to just leave. I understand he's frustrated. But I'll let you see some accountability. He did not play well this year. I don't know if Jalen Hurts is the answer, but I know Carson had a terrible year. And, if he really believes that he's that much better than Jalen Hurts, go out on the practice field and prove it. Because if he does, I mean, Carson at his best is better than Jalen Hurts at his best. We know that. So go play like that, go practice like that, and win your job back.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I kind of understand it from his perspective. I think that there is such a thing as, fresh starts, and it can help a player.
Look at Nelly.
Yeah, look at Nelly. And there have been other guys. I think that really could be a situation if he ends up in a different spot that's a little better suited for him. And, we saw 12 games of him and Doug Peterson not being able to figure it out together this year. I don't know if Doug's the right guy to fix him. Based on the evidence, he isn't. So,
yeah,
it might make sense. And we've spent so much time talking about the Eagles' decision at quarterback. But if Carson really does request a trade and this situation becomes worse and it's not a tenable situation, then he's going to kind of force their hand a little bit. We spent so much time talking about the Eagles' decision, but Carson plays a big role in this. If the franchise quarterback doesn't want to be here, he can kind of force his way out of town. And he is tradable. The contract is tradable. It is. It's not ideal to have that much dead cap space, but if they look at him and they say he's not the answer, or if he says, I don't want to be here, I'm not going to play here, then they're going to have to trade him.
Yeah. I mean, Carson had played a lot of really good games under Doug Peterson. That's what doesn't add up for me. And, Doug's feel for Carson was never quite as good as it was for Nick. I understand that. But, I mean, the way Carson played in 17 and for that one stretch of like 8 games in 18 and the last month of 19 and other games in there, I mean, he was really good. He had the 6th highest, QB rating in the NFL from 17 to 19, playing under Doug Peterson, running plays that Doug Peterson was calling with wide receivers that ranged from awful to mediocre. So, I don't get how you get from that. Like a year ago today, they were getting ready to play Seattle, and he was coming off another good year, a great finish. He is healthy, played all 16 games. how do you get from that to fractured in a year?
Well, you know what? And I don't want to blame it all on this, but I don't think we're talking about this if the Eagles don't draft Jalen Hurts.
There's a good chance. I don't think we'll ever know, but
I mean, well, look at it this way. If they went this whole season with Nate Sudfeld as the backup, first off, they probably never bench Carson. Or if they bench Carson, based on what we saw tonight, Nate's not playing very well, and Carson gets back in there. And we probably say, well, Carson had a bad year. There's no one really, who else? And Carson's back then. Like, I don't think it would have gotten to this point if they don't draft Jalen Hurts. And that's, look, maybe Jalen Hurts will become the franchise quarterback, and in hindsight, we'll all say, I guess the Eagles had a good pick. I don't know if I'll ever say that. But I really don't, like, I believe that if they don't draft Jalen Hurts, we're not having this discussion right now.
Well, what does that say about Carson if, drafting Jalen Hurts affects him that much?
Yeah, and it's not just affecting him that much, which, look, I think it certainly had some sort of effect on him. But the Eagles wouldn't be in a situation where they would have had a quarterback that we're even talking about that's not Carson Wentz possibly being the future. They wouldn't be in that spot. And maybe we'd be talking right now about, hey, they had the 6th pick. It could still happen, but maybe they'll draft the quarterback. Maybe that's in the conversation, but they certainly wouldn't have had someone else on the roster we thought could be the future.
Yeah. No, it's all true. And I mean, I didn't like the pick. I think the player has some ability. I didn't like the pick. I still don't like the pick. Nothing good was going to come out of it. You're right. And it goes back to, if you let Carson force his way out of town and Jalen Hurts turns out to be not the answer, then where are you?
Well, the worst case scenario, honestly, is if Jalen Hurts just ends up being an average to a little bit below average NFL starter, because then if you surround him with enough talent, the Eagles are going to be okay, and then you're not going to be in a position to draft a quarterback. That's why, as much as I kind of don't think a quarterback is going to happen in the first round, the Eagles have to at least look into the quarterbacks that might be available to them with the 6th pick, because you just talked about it. It's not like they're here very often. You don't end up with a top 6 pick very often as this franchise. So you have to at least look at it.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, you're not going to get, the two that you're not going to get at 6. You're the two. Well, I don't know if anyone's a can't miss, but I agree. I think it's something to think about. I kind of tend to think that that'll be something for 2022.
Yeah, but the problem is that that's for 2022. You don't know where you're going to be drafting. I mean, if Jalen Hurts is okay, you might win some games next year.
Yeah, no, I mean, but I don't know if imagine if it's Trey Lance. How poetic would that be? That would be wild. Jalen Hurts replaces.
And I don't think they're going to draft a quarterback, but
no, it's got to be in the conversation.
Yeah,
it does. I agree, because there's just so many unknowns, and even if Carson's here, there's so many unknowns. It's a mess that they got themselves into by taking Jalen Hurts at 57. There's no doubt about it. 53, whatever it was.
57 was J-Jaw the year before.
Yeah, I had that in my mind. He was huge tonight, by the way. We'll save that for Dave's Positivity Corner.
We will. We'll spend more time talking about Carson Wentz in the next 2 months. I mean, that story just isn't going away. It's going to kind of dominate the entire offseason. another bit of news kind of on Sunday is that Howie Roseman will return. That was from Fox, I believe, Jake Glazer. No surprise. I mean, we knew Howie's kind of invincible. Whether or not they have some sort of front office shakeup, we'll see. I mean, they need it. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know what it means anyway if Howie still has final say.
And
he's going to be back.
I'll just read, I don't think that this team's going to have sustained success if Howie Roseman keeps picking the players. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think he's good enough at drafting. And I don't think he'll stay here if he's not drafting, if he doesn't have final say. So even though Glazer's report didn't, indicate whether Howie would be in the exact same role, I think it's pretty obvious he will be. I'd be shocked. I mean, they could bring in a guy. They could bring in another Joe Douglas or Dorsey or whoever it is and be under Howie. But Howie's not going to be here, I don't think, if he doesn't have final say in any role. I just don't see it. He's not going to stay here. This isn't like a Chip Kelly thing where, all right, you just kind of hang out. Let's give him enough rope and then we'll bring you back. No, I think this is it. And I think it's a mistake. I just think it's a mistake. You look at this roster, there's just not enough good players to compete. And especially if we just saw the last game of, Kelce and Ertz. BG will be back, but you keep losing good players and not replacing them, you're 4-11-1. And it's not going to get better. I just don't think it's going to get significantly better if he keeps drafting.
Yeah, and this is something the draft is something we've talked about for a long time. Really, from the time they signed Carson to that contract, was that, man, once you sign your quarterback to that big deal, the draft becomes so much more important because you have to find cheap talent. And the wells just run dry on this team. And now you're in a situation where all your good players are older. They're either starting to fall off or you got to kind of move on from them and you have no one to replace them. And you got to start hitting on these draft picks. And if you don't, that's when you end up in just a nightmare scenario that's really tough to get out of.
That's right. That's right. Because even the best GMs aren't going to hit on, more than 50%. So it's going to take over the long term. So it's going to take a couple of years to replenish the talent level. And the Eagles could be facing, a few years of, you can turn things around in the NFL quickly. And obviously there's a lot of unanswered questions, but they need young players. It's that simple.
Yeah. That's kind of the most depressing part of the season is that it was awful. And there's just honestly not a lot of reason for hope.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think not a lot of players got better. Alex Singleton did. But pretty much, the guys that were okay this year were pretty much the same as last year. Miles, he had some long runs, but, he was pretty much the same guy as last year. Goddard was kind of, and they were both hurt. They missed some time, but Goddard didn't make a huge jump from year 2 to year 3 or whatever it is for him. Year 2 to year 3. Guys like that, Greg Ward is Greg Ward. You just everyone's kind of the same. Who's the most improved player who played last year and played this year? TJ Edwards, maybe? I don't know. Who's the most improved player on the team? Willard is improved, but he didn't play last year. I just don't know what the answer is. I don't know if there is one. Dave is thinking.
Yeah. Greg Ward, maybe a little bit.
He was the same guy. He got the end zone
touchdowns.
Yeah. If Greg Ward, who caught 50 balls this year for 386 yards, is your most improved player, you're in big trouble. But that's that's what it is. I mean,
Josh Sweat.
Yeah, maybe Josh Sweat. What do you go from 4 to 6 sacks?
Yeah.
I made a list of the Eagles' best players under 30. They got like Miles, Goddard, Hargrave, Mulata, Isaac, Ertz, Singleton, Sweat, Barnett, and Jalen Mills. I guess Ward could be on there. Boston Scott probably should be on there somewhere. Quez, maybe. Wentz is under 30. I don't have him on there. TJ Edwards, Herbig, Rager, Cravon, Maddox, Fulgham. But, those are all their players under 30 that started a game this year. That's the nucleus. I mean, who on that list gets you excited?
Not many there.
Not many there. So that's where they are. And Howie's still picking the players. And I don't get why. I mean, Jeff Lurie is a smart guy. I think he's been a great owner for this franchise. I think he has a good eye for talent in all phases. He's a great owner. He's just got this blind spot for Howie Roseman. Don't get it.
He really does. I wanted to bring something up late after the game. Happened to notice around the 50-yard line on the Eagles bench, Jason Kelce standing up, Zach Ertz and Carson Wentz on the bench next to each other. Those three were chatting along with the Eagles VP of security. Probably the last time they're teammates. It feels like a really the end of an era here. I don't know if any of those three will be back. I mean, maybe Kelce doesn't retire and he's back. Maybe I think there's a decent chance that all three are gone, and we're talking about,
Dom might even be gone.
Maybe.
I didn't know he was a vice president. When did they make Dom a vice president?
They've got like 45 vice presidents.
That's true. Yeah. Gosh. Yeah. I mean, out of that group, I think Ertz is likely gone. I think Carson, there's a good chance he's gone. And I feel more like that now than I have at any point. And Kelce, I mean, that's going to be up to him. I don't think Kelce will retire because of we know the whole tanking thing turns him off, but I don't think that's why he's going to retire. But he's 33. He's played a lot of football. He's got a lot of other interests. And, it's got to be hard to be that age and have been to the top of the mountain and sit there facing a rebuild as he's not the kind of guy that's going to stick around just to get a couple more Pro Bowls and try to make the Hall of Fame. I remember I asked him about that once, and he just looked at me like I was crazy. That's not why I play this game. I was like, if you make 2 more Pro Bowls, it was probably at the end of last year. I said, every center that's made 5 Pro Bowls has made the Hall of Fame. He's like, I'm not going to stick around if my heart's not in this and try to stack up Pro Bowls. He's like, that's not what I'm all about.
That would end up being the biggest shame of this game if it ends, if that's the way his career ended. That would suck.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine. I mean, I've been doing this a long, long time, man, and I don't know if I would miss a player more, both as a player and as a person. And unfortunately, we didn't really get to hang out this year like we usually do. I mean, Jason's lockers in the way back in the locker room, and all the offensive linemen are in one area. And, it was always a highlight of your day if you saw him back there just kind of sitting around. And, it's not about interviewing him. You just go back and BS about anything and talk about a book that he just read or some TV show or movie or, music. He's a big music guy, politics, world affairs. I mean, the guy was just so much fun to be around. Class act, incredible player, all-time great Eagle. And I can't imagine, and just kind of really redefined the center position, being one for, quick, smaller, athletic guys, smart. It's hard to imagine him not being an Eagle. It really is. And
Ertz too.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about two of the best players in franchise history.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It really, it does kind of feel like the end of an era. Yeah.
But it's necessary too, in a way. I mean,
well, I don't know.
Is inevitable.
I don't think Kelce's necessary.
Not necessary with him specifically, but I just mean it's time to find younger players, and
they need the cap space too.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. But yeah, both those things are important. And Howie's been too, I think, slow to make these decisions in the past. And part of the reason is because these older guys have been some of their better players, and because he hasn't drafted well, so the guys aren't there to replace him, so he keeps them too long. It's so similar to the Phillies when they just kept Ryan Howard and J. Roll and Chase Utley around too long. I think a lot of that was just they sold so many tickets because so many people loved those guys. And the Eagles, it's obviously they're selling out every game, so that's not an issue. But I think Howie just tends to let his heart make decisions for him sometimes, and it's a mistake.
Yeah. Do we want to do a positivity corner?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was a heck of an interception, wasn't it?
It's a great interception because he was going to make the hit, and then all of a sudden the ball was there. So he just I may as well catch it. And then I wasn't sure he was down by contact, and he starts running toward the end zone. He just kind of stops at the 2, and the Washington defenders didn't know if they should tackle him or not, and so he just kind of stood there, and then one of his teammates just pushed him in the end zone. He was down by contact at the 15 or whatever, but
if they would have ruled a touchdown, Doug would have challenged it.
That's awesome. That's probably true, but FC ends up leading the team in interceptions with 2.
Didn't see that coming.
Yeah, so Eagles have not had anybody with more than 2 interceptions for since 2018. I think Sidney Jones led the team with 2 last year, including one on the last day of the season.
I don't really have any. You got anything else?
A positivity corner. I thought Alex Singleton played great, man.
He did play great.
That kid, well, he's not a kid. He's 27. Another former practice squad guy. He had 7 tackles in the first quarter. I don't know his final. He just,
double digits in 6 of his last 8 games.
Yeah. I mean, he had a sack. He's not a great pass rusher, but he just gets to the quarterback by sheer effort.
He's pretty quick.
He is.
As a blitzer. Yeah.
He's got some work to do as in coverage, but I think he's a guy that there's a role for him on my team any day. He's a big hitter. He plays hard. He's like an old time. He's kind of like an anachronistic linebacker. He's not the modern. He's not
like he's not LeVon Kirkland out there.
No, he's not. He's not. Nobody is LeVon Kirkland. He's not 280, but I like it. I think he's one guy you can kind of. You pencil him in there for next year. Although Nate Gary's coming back, Well, no, he's not. I think he's not free agent.
Yeah, and Singleton will be back. He's an exclusive rights guy. So
even though he told us he doesn't know what that means.
Yeah, it means you're back. You have nowhere else to go.
It means you got no options there. But yeah. So that's. I don't think I have anything else in the positivity corner. Singleton and Epsy. Boston Scott had a nice game. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I thought the defense showed a lot of heart.
They did. They really
Jim
did.
Schwartz's last game, it seemed like they were kind of playing for him.
Yeah. Yeah, and they were so undermanned. I mean, there was guys. It was funny. I tweeted. There was
They lined up Rudy Ford at corner today.
Yeah, Rudy Ford.
Rudy Ford hadn't played a defensive snap until last week.
Yeah. He actually made a couple of plays.
He did.
He actually made a couple of plays. There was a point where I'm like, that's a great play by Smith. And I'm like, who the hell is Smith? They don't have anybody named Smith. And I'm looking at this guy, and he's like, Smith. And I had to go to the roster and look up. It's like Rashad Smith. And I remembered, I think I actually wrote the story when they either claimed it. Did they claim him on waivers? I think somebody cut him.
Yeah, I think so.
And it was like 3 weeks ago, and he was on the practice squad. I don't even know if he's on the roster or if he was a game day call-up. I don't even know. But I think he's on the practice squad, right?
No, they had signed him this week.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you claim him, you got to – well, anyway, that I'll put Rashad Smith on positivity corner.
Fair enough. That's all we got.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be back with you guys soon enough. If you enjoyed the Eagle Eye podcast, do us a favor, rate and subscribe. It's the end of the season. We're going to keep doing pods throughout the offseason, but I guess it's a good time to thank everyone for your support all year. It's been kind of a weird season for us to cover this team, but we appreciate it. We appreciate everyone listening and however you listen. And hopefully next year we get some fans back in the stands, because I never want to go through a season in empty stadiums again. Yeah.
I'm with you. I want to get back on that 6 a.m. flight from Dallas, after a Sunday night game, driving home and driving to the hotel in a tornado, man. I miss it. I really do. I miss everything about it. Hopefully by next fall, things are close enough to normal that we can get back to doing what we love to do, the way we love to do it.
Hope so. For Rube, I'm Dave. We'll talk to you guys soon.